Hello learners, welcome back to the course of Fundamentals of Economics and Financial Market. I am your instructor Dr. Parul Jain from Department of Economics, DAV PG College. We are here again with a new topic, with a new scope of economics, with a new concept that will help you to understand more of economics. Another subject area of economics is the area of public finance. But before starting with the public finance, let us discuss earlier to public finance what was the mechanism that was operative, and that was the free market mechanism. A free market mechanism where there existed capitalist, the motive behind them was profit, and laissez-faire policy was operative. Laissez-faire policy is the non-intervention of government in various trade and commerce activities. That was the mechanism which was propounded, which was supported by Adam Smith and other propounders. They all had this idea, and an invisible hand idea was there of Adam Smith. This invisible hand would always equilibrate the things, the other variables, if a disequilibrium occurs. However, this market mechanism slowly, certain problems started arising in this market mechanism that resulted into market failure. So, we should know what is market failure. Keeping this in mind, the topics covered today would include market failure, public finance and its subject matter, public goods, and theories of allocation of public good. So, what I was talking of market failure, if we describe market failure is any economic situation. Market failure is any economic situation defined by an insufficient distribution of goods and services in the free market. That means a state of disequilibrium in the market due to market distortions occur. Now, what were the causes that led to such distortions? The cause behind them was, first and foremost, was externalities. As you can see, it refers to the spillovers or neighborhood effect. Now, what is this spillover and neighborhood effect? Externality basically means that our utility is not only affected by what we are doing, but another variable X, which we are not directly involved but is having an impact on us. To say, we can say that utility of A is a function of his variable x1, x2, x3 and a y variable which is having impact on utility of A. However, A is not directly doing that. See, for example, I can say one of my roommates, when we used to live in hostels, she has a habit of singing. And for singing, in the morning she used to do riyaz. 4 o'clock early in the morning, waking up and doing riyaz. That is an externality that was hampering my sleep. So, my utility was hampered. Or I can say next day I am having exams and loud music is played in my society. That is hampering, that is distorting my utility. So, this is an example of negative externality. However, positive externality do also exist in the economy, like the pulse polio vaccine that was given by the government. An eradication of polio from the economy, from the state, was a positive externality. However, market mechanism failed because of more negative externalities that were occurring in the market sector. Another reason was provision of public goods. Public goods that have collective consumption, that was being required of in the economy to be provided, but the capitalist was not providing such good. Uncertainties also existed in the economy. Things were not certain with the people. Profit became the motive. Concentration of power in the hands of the few started creeping in. The difference between private cost and social cost was widening. So, people had uncertainties, as well as the market control was more in the hands of sellers than any other. So, that also became a reason for market failure. Asymmetric information, that the information with the buyer, the seller and the people trading in the economy, the information was not apt and correct with all the people. Thus, imperfect information was there. These all reasons led to the failure of the market economy. As the market economy went down, the role of the government started increasing. Now, the government started participating in trade, commerce, national policies, different fiscal and monetary policies of the economy, various aspects, defense, the role also widened. So, slowly the role of the government started increasing, and thus we can say that the subject matter of public finance started developing. Public finance, to define, if I say, it deals with the income and expenditure of authorities. Which authorities? Center, state and local government, and their control as well as administration. So, the public finance, if we define in words of Professor Dalton, he says that public finance is that area which is concerned with the income and expenditure of public authorities and with the adjustment of one to the other. That means all the income and expenditure of public authorities is the government here, whether center, whether state, whether local, and all the administrative mechanism that is going on to maintain this income and expenditure scenario, so that the collective satisfaction of want of the people are secured. Public finance has 4 broad areas, or we say the subject matter of public finance contains 4 broad aspects. The first and foremost is public revenue. Now, what is public revenue? If I define revenue, revenue is the income of the government. Public is the government and revenue is the income of the government. And public revenue basically deals with the methods and the effects of collecting public revenue. The sources of public revenue in the form of tax revenue, in the form of non-tax revenue, and via what method we are collecting tax and non-tax revenue, the government is collecting, and this collection of tax, what effect it is having on the individuals or the taxpayers or the SSEs, or overall on the economy. That is public revenue. Second is public expenditure. Public expenditure is expenditure of the government, any expenditure that the government does on the people and the economy as a whole or in itself, that is termed as public expenditure. So what is the effect of public expenditure? What are the various heads in which the government does public expenditure, and what impact this public expenditure will have on people? Other one is public debt. Public debt is the loan taken by the government. Central government can take internal and external loan. However, state government takes internal loans only. So public debt basically deals with what kind of debt the government is taking, what is the methodology of taking debts, what is the objective, and how this public debt is managed, both internal as well as external. The fourth area of public finance is the financial administration and control. Financial administration and control is basically done through budget. Budget of the government is the annual financial statement that government presents every year. It serves as an instrument of economic growth and stability. So, in budget, various aspects, government income, government revenue, government expenditures, all things are shared. Fiscal aspect of the budget is shared, overall economy budget is shared. So, financial administration and control is exercised through this. By government, since the state is a welfare state, so the first and foremost thing that was creeping in that led to the downfall of the market failure was the provision of public good. Let us now discuss this public good in detail. To start with, I'll say that human wants are classified into 2, private wants and public wants. Private wants are the individual wants that an individual has and tries to consume according to that private want to satisfy his or her utility. The second is the public want. Public wants are those wants which are satisfied through budget. To satisfy the public want, public goods are provided, which are available free of charge to the user. And these goods are again classified into private and public goods. Public goods, as I said, are those goods consumption of which is externalized. That means these goods are provided by the government like a road, a park, external to our ambit. This can be utilized by anyone, whosoever is there in the economy. It is there to satisfy the social wants of the people in general. There are 5 characteristics for a good to be public good, as said by Samuelson. First and foremost, that public goods are jointly supplied and benefited from consumption of public good. That means any public good that is provided is for collective consumption. Many people can consume this public good. Second, a public good is non-rival in consumption. Non-rival in consumption means that if I am consuming, if I am walking on a road, I will not have a jealousy or a rivalrous feeling why X person is also walking on the road. Anyone can use that public good. Or if a street light is there, I won't feel a rival feeling that I should get the light of the street and the other person should not get. So, non-rival in consumption. Third important characteristic of public good is marginal cost. Marginal cost means addition to the total cost by production of an extra unit of a commodity. To be simple, I'll say marginal cost is delta, change in total cost due to change in production in one extra unit of a commodity or an additional unit of a commodity. That is marginal cost. That means a public good that is provided by the government, its a marginal cost is 0. No matter how many people are working, how many people are utilizing that public good, but the cost remains the same. There is no change in this. Fourth principle, fourth characteristic of public good is of non-exclusion. Non-exclusion means that X cannot be excluded, segregated from using public good. Each and everyone can use it. And the public good is indivisible. Indivisible basically means you cannot divide a particular good into smaller parts and use. Whatever a public good is given by the government in the economy, a road can be used like a road. People cannot divide that road into smaller units and use. A street light cannot be divided, a park cannot be divided, any health center cannot be divided. As a whole unit, you have to use that public good. So, a public good has these 5 characteristics, these 5 things given by Samuelson. The example are national defense, public parks and street lights. Now, these public goods are further categorized into pure and impure public good. Pure public good is strictly that good which fulfills total conditions, characteristics given by Samuelson. That means marginal cost is strictly 0, element of jointness is there, collective consumption, non-rival is there and non-excludability is there. Howsoever, when impure public good is dealt with, impure public good is partly rivalrous. Certain impurities creep in. There is certain amount of opportunity cost involved in admitting more users. These impure goods can be mixed goods or club goods like swimming pools, golf courses. They are having an element of collective consumption, but only those people who are in that club. A cricket academy can be an example of club goods as well. Some more concepts that are related to public goods are social wants and merit wants. Now, when I say public wants are further classified into social and merit wants. Social wants are those wants whose satisfaction is done through budgetary allocation. Merit wants are those wants which can be satisfied on the basis of consumer choice. Such items can include a furnished school lunch, subsidized low-cost housing, and free education. These are the merit wants, and the goods which satisfy the merit wants are merit goods. Along with public good, private goods do exist. Now, private good, as I said earlier, are those goods which yield utility only to person who is consuming that particular good. It has a specific price that need to be paid by the consumer, and then that person can consume specific good. That means private good is priced in the market and carry a price which may either be a full economic price or a subsidized price, and who do not pay the price are excluded. Implies that rivalrous characteristic is there, excludability is there, and goods are excludable and rival in consumption. That means one who pays is using that good, and one person's consumption reduces the amount available for others. Like food, if I go to a restaurant and many people have already consumed a certain amount of food, it might happen that the person who are coming late might not get all the items. Many a times when we go in a restaurant or a such place to eat, when we ask, is this there in the menu, and the person there replies, no, this is not in the menu, today's item, this has finished. So one person's consumption can reduce the amount available to other. Same can happen with the clothings. We go for shopping, many clothes, many sizes are not available because other persons have already bought their sizes. Even in online shopping this happens, and cars, the same thing we witness. So this is a brief description of comparison table between public and private good on the basis of rivalry, on the basis of excludability. That means public good is non-excludable, non-rivalrous, private is excludable and rivalrous. Another problem that comes along with public good is the problem of free rider. Now, what is this free rider? Free rider includes all those persons, individuals who are benefiting from public good, but they are not contributing to its cost. Now, what will this have an impact on others? One is difficulty in funding that good. Why? Because only suppose 10 people are contributing and 20 or 15 people are consuming. Thus, the amount to be made available will not be the same as the consumption, means demand is more for that public good, however supply is not there. So, under contribution may lead to difficulty in funding that particular good, and government often steps in to provide public good. So this also becomes sometimes a problem. To deal with this problem, there are three theories given by different economists that how can this free rider problem be dealt with. So there were three theories in the form of allocation of public good. First theory was the marginal utility theory. The second was voluntary exchange theory, and the third was Samuelson theory. One by one, we'll be dealing with these theories. So first, let's discuss marginal utility theory. This theory was propounded by A.C. Pigou. What does this theory say? What did Pigou did in his theory? While developing this theory, Pigou provided an analysis which comprehensively included both tax and expenditure side of public fiscal operations. In his theory, he included tax and expenditure. Tax as a source of income, revenue to the government, and expenditure what the government is doing. What Pigou said was that whenever we are paying taxes, an element of sacrifice is there when we are paying the taxes. And public expenditure, we expect it is for our benefit. So, benefit accruing to an individual are in the form of his consumption of public good. That means when the government is providing us the public good, we feel satisfied that we are getting a benefit out of the tax what we are paying. The cost is involved, the cost what we are giving for that public good is imposed in the form of income which is taken away as taxes. Now, Pigou did what? Pigou derived a relationship between this in the form of marginal utility, that is derived from marginal utility is change in total utility by consumption of an extra unit of a commodity. Marginal utility that we derive is from the expenditure that is given by the government, and marginal disutility, a sacrifice, a negative feeling that is created by devoting additional amount of income of certain goods. So Pigou did what? In the principle of marginalism, he said that marginal utility derived by individual in a society from consumption of public good and marginal disutility suffered by individual by payment of taxes do share a relationship. And he said that public good allocation will be optimum at a point where the marginal utility from public expenditure is equal to marginal disutility caused by paying for it. See, this can be explained and understood with the help of a diagram. Now, in this plane, here we are taking the negative aspect, that is marginal disutility from tax. And here we are taking marginal utility from provision of public good. This line is your government budget that is being provided by government towards expenditure towards the benefit received, which includes both expenditure, that is the spending, and the tax, that is the cost individuals are having. As the government provides more and more benefits, public good, with every addition of expenditure, with every addition of provision of public good, the marginal utility starts diminishing as per the law of diminishing marginal utility by the consumption of public good. Howsoever, see, we are taking this marginal utility by consumption of public good X, if I am taking. So, howsoever, the marginal disutility that we are having due to payment of taxes, with the passage of time, that marginal disutility increases. Marginal disutility of X increases. So, the point where marginal utility is equal to marginal disutility, that is AB, would be the point where optimum allocation of public good would be conducted. See, if we are moving from AB point to this point, what is happening? If I move to C and D, the disutility is greater than utility. If I am here, that means what? The utility is greater than disutility. So, this is the point where this specific area is equal to this. So, that was the point of optimum allocation by Pigou. Second approach is the voluntary exchange approach. It was given by Lindhall Johnson and Bowen. Under this approach, they derive it from the benefit received principle governing the distribution of tax burden, that is a public good when provided, individuals who are there in the economy are getting the same quantity, but the cost that they are paying for receiving that public good is different. Therefore, the benefit received principle governing the distribution of tax burden. In this, there were few assumptions when we go to this theory. First, the production or the supply cost of public good is constant. It is not changing. Second, there are only three consumers or taxpayers in the economy, that are A, B and C. And there is only one type of public good, that is Z, that is demanded by the consumer. Now, let's understand this. If on x-axis, I am taking quantity of public good Z, quantity of public good Z, and on y-axis, I am taking price or cost of public good Z. This is the demand curve of individual A, taxpayer A. This is the demand curve of taxpayer B, and this is the demand curve of taxpayer C. Three individuals in the economy and three demand curves. Now, this is the market demand curve, that is D. Since it is assumed that the supply function is taken constant, so we are taking supply function as SS. The point where market demand is equal to market supply, that is the point E. Here is the quantity of public good that is given by the government. This optimal quantity, for this quantity, C is paying PC price, B is paying PB price, and A is paying PA price. Means three individual taxpayers requiring the same public good are paying different cost in the form of tax for acquiring that public good. Now suppose if I move from this position, this supply cost function moves, or I am moving from say point E to point F, what would happen? At that point, supply would be more and demand would be less. So a case of overproduction would be there. That is not required. And if I move to point G on this supply function, what will happen? Demand would be more than supply. So underproduction would be there. So the optimal point would be point E. And the quantity of public good would be OQ, at which individuals are paying different prices. So this was the solution that was given by Lindhall and Bowen. Howsoever, it was thoroughly criticized as well that in an economy, three individuals and only one public good in demand cannot exist. Now, another solution was also given that we call the modern theory or the Samuelson theory of public good. Now, what did Samuelson say? Samuelson used the Walrasian general equilibrium, that if three variables are in equilibrium, fourth would automatically be in equilibrium. It is not a case of partial equilibrium, rather general equilibrium. And Samuelson's analysis was based on Pareto optimality. See, Pareto gave an optimality principle that policy changes are doing a welfare. Any change in the policy would make some people better off, but it will be on the cost of making few worse off. That was the optimality condition, that was 7 optimality conditions that were discussed in Pareto optimality. From here, Pareto optimality changed to Pareto improvement. In improvement, what we do, keeping the consumption, keeping the utility of one individual constant, you can increase the utility of other. That was an amendment in Pareto optimality. So Samuelson has used the same principle of Pareto optimality, that keeping the utility of one person constant, we can maximize the utility of the other. So to prove this point, he has used production possibility curve, that is the PPC curve, which we call transformation curve, and the indifference curve. His model works under this assumption 2 into 2 into 2. That means two factors of production, labor and capital, two goods A and B, and two individuals X and Y. See, this can be explained with the help of a diagram. Let us now mark these diagrams as 1. This is the first, this is the second, and this is the third. On x-axis, we have taken quantity of public goods in all the 3 figures, and on y-axis, we have taken quantity of private goods, since there are 2 goods, x and y, in the economy. So on y-axis, we are taking private goods, on an x-axis, we are taking public goods. ICA, before ICA, I'll say ki T and T is the production possibility curve. Production possibility curve basically says in a specific time period how much amount is produced in the economy. So T and T is the production possibility curve of the economy. ICA is the indifference curve. Indifference curve is what? It is the locus of combination of 2 commodities that give consumer equal level of satisfaction. So ICA is the indifference curve of individual A. Same curve I have drawn on this production possibility curve. Now suppose we are taking this point, and at this point I'll say small a. If I'm taking this point, that means OM quantity of public good is consumed by consumer A, and public good is available for in equal amount for all the consumers in the economy. So since there are 2 consumers, A and B, that means what? Ki public good is available if OM is consumed by A, same amount of public good would be consumed by B as well. It is available for B as well. So if I drop down this line from A, same amount will be available for B, M, OM, OM. This taking as market as say suppose Z. So OZ amount or AM amount is consumed by of private good is consumed by A, and OM amount is consumed by of public good is consumed by A and B both. Now this is the total production possibility curve. So the total available amount of private good is this see highlighted mark. Out of this, AM amount is consumed by A consumer. So A and small b amount would be left for consumer B. So this distance A and B, if I scatter it down, so you will get this point. See this point, which is left for consumer B. Similarly, if I move from Z to Z1, that means what? Public good, what I am consuming is O to OT, that is consumed by A, same amount is consumed by B, and whole of the private good amount is consumed by A, so nothing is left for C. And if I move to point A dash, so JA dash is consumed by A, howsoever the amount left for B is A dash, B dash. So if we mark this distance here in the B's utility curve, it will be somewhere here. By doing this, I can have various combinations of public and private good. The private good, the amount of private good that is consumed by A, and the remaining would be left for B. If I draw B's indifference curve, that is ICB here, the point of maximum satisfaction of B, say G dash, would be the place where indifference curve is tangent to utility curve of B. So Samuelson general equilibrium theory says that this way there can be a distribution of public and private goods in the economy. This allocation would definitely help to cater with the problem of free riders. Now, let's have a self-evaluation question, that which theory of public good allocation is considered as best? Give your reasons. I hope you will be able to do this. Now, the suggested readings for this public finance subject is Musgrave and Musgrave, Browning and Browning, you can go through Buchanan's book, as well as N. Radhakrishnan, Public Finance. So these readings would definitely help you to understand the subject better. Thank you for today.